Okay, before we begin, let's pay our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and Radha Govinda. We'll begin with our prayers. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Rupakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Kanchana Gaurangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Bhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Veitadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is where we were discussing about the devotees of the Lord and how they live and what they do, how they are different from, how Krishna conscious people are different from materially conscious people. So who would like to recite this shloka? Are you all able to hear me? Chaitali Mataji, Deepa Mataji, two people have raised. Mataji, Chaitali Mataji, please recite.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Yadna Shishta Shina Santo Muchante Sarvakil Vishai Bhujante Te Tvam Agham Papa Ye Paschante Atma Karanat. Translation: the devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. Bhagavad Gita 3.13. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Devotees of the Supreme Lord don't accept anything without first offering it to Krishna, the Supreme Person. They are also called Santas. They are always in love with the Lord. Whatever they do with that consciousness. They are always thinking about Krishna. Like in Brahma Samhita, it is said, right? Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. So it's like they are always thinking about Krishna and they're so much in love with him. So everything that they do is for Krishna and they perform yajnas. What kind of yajnas? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam. So this is what they do all the time. And everything in the sense, see now everybody prepares food, but we prepare for our own sense gratification. We say, okay, I like this, so I'll prepare this and eat. I love to eat this, that's why I'm eating. When we cook, sometimes people taste also. But it is said that that is not what is recommended. And people who do not offer anything to the Lord, they are called thieves. And if society is full of thieves, then there is no peace. Everybody is committing sins. So let's. This is the next verse. Who would like to recite? Deepa Mataji, you had raised your hand. Jayant Prabhu, please go ahead, Prabhu.
Annad bhavanti bhutani paryat anna sambhava yajnat bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhavaha. So the translation: all living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, that is sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Bhagavad Gita 3.14.
Hare Krishna. So when Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is worshipped, there is no need to worship the demigods. In the purport, the Prabhupada has explained very clearly. So there is no need to worship them separately. That's what it means. And whenever you eat prasadam, what happens is all the past sinful reactions will be vanquished. So we become immunized to all contaminations of material nature. It's like taking a vaccine. When you take a vaccine or something against some disease, you have this protection, right? It's just a rough example. It is like that. When there is, we take so many vaccinations. When the baby is born, only we'll start giving. That is protect the baby. It is like that. Taking prasad is like that. All the material infection will not affect us. And then we can be proud. Some people are very proud. I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. I don't do this. I'm actually better than others. But Prabhupada says, person who eats meat, say for instance, all of us are dependent on Mother Nature for food, grains, vegetables, fruits, and animals also eat grains. And whatever the refuse of the food grains, they eat that also. So directly or indirectly, even the person who is eating non-veg meat, he is also dependent on grains. So he cannot, say that he's independent or anything. So all of us, indirectly or indirectly, are very much dependent on the production of the grains and vegetables and fruits and everything. So it becomes very important for us to perform yajnas, sacrifices, because that's our way of showing gratitude, and it is mentioned in the Vedas. We have to perform the cycle of sacrifice. And for us, the easiest method is chanting. Then if we do that, then there will not be any scarcity of food supply. Mother Earth also will be very happy and she will help us. She will provide us whatever we need. So it is mentioned in the purport, it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So the next verse, who would like to recite? Whoever wants to recite, keep your hands raised so that everybody can try reciting. And everyone please try, because that's how we learn. It's okay to make mistakes. Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi Brahmakshara Samudbhavam Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yajna Pratishtitam. Should I read this, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, please.
Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, everyone wants to enjoy, in the sense that's why we are here. We want to enjoy Lord Krishna. That's why they sent us here. Krishna has sent us here. So we have this perverted desire. So Vedic directions are designed such that we can satisfy our desires by following all the rules and regulations, and slowly we can purify ourselves and go back to Godhead. It is a chance given to us by sending us into this material creation. Krishna is giving us a chance to go back actually by purifying ourselves. So if somebody asks, where is it written in Bhagavad Gita that we have to chant? Where is Krishna saying that? So in 10.25, in that chapter, 10th chapter and 25th verse, Krishna is saying, Yagnanam Japa Yagnosmi, saying of the sacrifices and the chanting of the holy names. He says there is a lot of, you must have gone through this in the 18 days course also. So he's mentioning it there. Let's go on. Next verse. Deepa Mataji, did you get a chance? Not yet, right? Not yet. Okay, then Kavita Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. एवं प्रवर्तितं चक्रं नानुवर्तयति यः अधार्यो इन्द्रिया रामो modam partha sajivati. My dear Arjuna, a man who does not follow this prescribed Vedic system of sacrifice certainly leads a life of sin, for a person delighting only in the senses lives in vain. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. We all have heard this, right? Work hard so that you can enjoy. You work so hard, put in all your effort, earn so much money, do whatever. But why do you have to do that? So that you can enjoy. That is very common, right? That's the philosophy. Usually everyone follows. But human life is specifically meant for self-realization. And Krishna condemns this philosophy of work very hard and enjoy sense gratification. He's saying that is not right. Because the cycle of performing yajnas is very, very necessary if we want to enjoy this material world. Otherwise, what will happen? We'll be condemned more and more. We'll not come out of this cycle at all. And anything that is performed without the direction of the Vedas is called vikarma. If we don't follow the rules and regulations that is set by Lord himself, we'll be committing sins. That is called vikarma. So we have to be very careful. Nishkama Karma Yoga to set correct example. The Nishkama Karma Yogi may conclude, my prescribed duties are meant to bring material reward, but I do not have any material desire in this life, nor do I desire Svargaloka. I know I am not this body, so why should I need to perform my prescribed duties? In the following verses, 3.17 to 3.32, Krishna explains why one freed from material desires should nevertheless perform his duties. Answer to Arjuna's argument of destruction of family dynasty. Okay, another sloka here. Sahili Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Digit 3.17. Yastivi Atma Ratir Eva Syat Atma Triptas Cha Manava Atmani Eva Cha Santustas Tatsya Karyam Na Vidyate. But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. Bhagavad Gita 3.17. Hare Krishna Mataji.
So for a person who is fully Krishna conscious and is fully satisfied by his acts in Krishna consciousness, he has no longer any duty to perform. What happens is, being in Krishna consciousness, all impiety within himself will be instantly cleansed. So this is like equal to performing many exam performances, many sacrifices. Just by following all the rules and regulations in Krishna consciousness, he is becoming pure. His heart is becoming pure, his mind is becoming pure. And once the consciousness clears, the devotee will become fully confident of his eternal position. It's like a realization. Right now, whatever we read is like theory, but the realization will happen that he is a part and parcel of the Lord, and what is his eternal position. He'll understand all that, and he will not be interested in any material activities, especially material activities like drinking alcohol, wine, or being associated with being attracted to the opposite sex for no reason, like women and other such infatuations and lusty behavior will not be there at all, because from inside he is getting cleansed. So he does not have to perform any other duty. Duties are meant to purify us. So now 3.18. Manohar Punjabi, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please recite.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Bhagavad Gita 3.18. Naiva tasya kritinna tho na kritinna kasyana na kasya sarva bhuteshu kasyat artha vyapasuriha. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So a self-realized man is no longer obliged to perform any prescribed duty except activities in Krishna consciousness. He has to perform some activities, but that will be in Krishna consciousness. That means Krishna consciousness is not inactivity. There are things to do actually. So one more, the next verse. Who would like to recite? Someone else had raised their hand. I think it was Sahili Mataji. Okay, Jayant Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto yak acharan karma param apnoti purushaha. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the Supreme. Bhagavad Gita 3.19. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to act without attachment and be dedicated to him, Krishna. So if someone is good, we say, oh, this person is so good. That is their personal attachment. But if a person acts on behalf of the Supreme Lord without attachment, then he is actually perfect. He is acting without attachment for the result of his action. So that is perfect action of the highest degree. So that is what it means. So let's move on. 3.20. Raised, so we can, whatever, whenever we see a new verse, we can. Manohar Prabhuji, please go on.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Go ahead, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita 3.20 verse. Karma naiva hi samasiddham ashrita janaka dayah loka sangramaha evapi sammapasyan kartum arhasi. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Bhagavad Gita 3.20. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So kings like Janaka were all self-realized souls. They had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties. Still, they performed all their activities. Why prescribed activities? Why? To set examples for the people in general. So Arjuna is the Lord's eternal friend, and here they are fighting, right? They are on the battlefield. They fought to teach people in general. What are they teaching? They're teaching that sometimes violence becomes necessary. When good arguments fail, violence becomes necessary. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, they actually went to, efforts were made to avoid the war, but it did not work. The other party was determined to fight. Duryodhana wanted to fight. So that is why they are assembled here, and they are actually setting an example by going through all this, whatever questions and answers, here, what Arjuna is speaking, what Krishna is saying, and whatever examples they are setting, this is for all of us to follow. Hili Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please, Mataji, go ahead and recite. Mataji? Hili Mataji, are you able to unmute? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Mataji. May I?
Yes, Mataji, please.
Bhagavad Gita 3.21. Yad yad acharati shreshtas tat tat evitaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastat anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So it is saying, whatever standard is set by a great man, the world will pursue. Arjuna was already a leader. So Krishna is saying, please be careful. Please be mindful of your actions. People in general always require a leader who can teach them how to behave by their own practical behavior. We all have a tendency to follow someone, right? We all have some mentor or leader. In our own family, we'll have someone we would be imitating or learning something from them. So at school, workplace, we all have somebody who we look up to, right? So that's how it is. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. Acharya means one who teaches by his own example. He is the ideal teacher. Like, for instance, you think of a person like, say, a big leader. Maybe some people take movie stars as their leaders. They're like, oh, I just love this person, movie star. I will do everything that he does. And they paste their photos everywhere. And, this is happening, right? For them, that person is the leader. And say that person, for instance, he says, please don't smoke. There's a big billboard with him saying, don't smoke and all that. But he himself smokes in his real life. He's not following that. Then, that has no value. If he's not following what he is preaching, then people may not, they go by actions. So a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, actually. That is what is recommended. Just what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says. To teach a common person, that person should be well versed in Shastra. Because the revealed scriptures are standard books, like Manu Samhita and all. They are meant to be followed by human society. So we cannot manufacture our own rules and regulations. We cannot say, okay, I'm a leader, so I'll manufacture, I'll make my own rules, I have my own principles, and I'll make everybody follow. That's not how it works. So Prabhupada writes actually, king or the executive head of a state, a father, a teacher, they are all natural leaders. School teacher, for example, they're all natural leaders, and innocent people follow them. So they have to be very careful. They have a great responsibility towards children and their family members. Whoever is dependent on them, they will be following them. So they have to be very careful. They should be well versed with standard books of moral and spiritual codes. 3.22.
न मे पार्थास्ति कर्तव्यं त्रिषु लोकेषु किञ्चन नानवाप्तमहाप्तव्यं वर्त एव च कर्मणि. O son of Partha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor I am in want of anything, nor I have a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties.
Hare Krishna. So here
Hare
you see how he is carrying his father's footwear on his head, and here he is a charioteer to his friend. So he was serving his own devotees, right? And he himself is saying, he does not need to do all this. So Vedic literatures and Srimad Bhagavatam, they all state that there is no one greater than God, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. There is no difference between his body and his soul. He is absolute. All his senses are transcendental. All his information is there. And then any one of his senses can perform the action of other senses. And he is full in 6 opulences. Do you know that? What are the 6 opulences? Krishna is full in 6 opulences. What are they?
Renouncement and prosperity, wealth.
Krishna is the most beautiful. Krishna is the most powerful.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for your input.
All
Strength.
riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation.
Strength, wealth, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. So he is the proprietor of all riches, and he is saying there is no duty for him to perform. There's nothing to achieve within these 3 planetary systems. There's no duty. We have something to achieve, right? We always say, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, and we always look, oh, if I do this, I will become successful. So we have something, some goal is always there, material or whatever. But for him, he has nothing to achieve. Still, he is engaged in this battle of Kurukshetra. He's with his friend on this battlefield, right? So Krishna is above all these rules and regulations given in this revealed scriptures. Still, he does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures, and also he is trying to do all this so that he can set an example for us. Okay, let's go to the next one. Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please recite, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. यदि एहं न वर्तेयं जातु कर्मणि अतन्वृथा मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्यः पार्थ सर्वशः. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. Hare
Krishna. And Krishna himself says, he descended to establish the principles of religion. His greatest authority is performing all the religious and all the prescribed duties at home, outside of home. Just like an ordinary person, not like an ordinary householder, he was also performing all his duties. So this is for common men to follow, so that they can follow in his footsteps. We can just, try to follow. We cannot copy him. We can just follow. We'll understand more about this. So 3.24. Sirisha Mataji, Hare Krishna. Mataji, you can recite. Sirisha Mataji. Or Saheli Mataji would like to recite?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Bhagavad Gita 3.24. Utsidayur ime loka na kuryam karma chet aham sankaryasya cha kartasyam upahanyam ima praja. If I didn't perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Mataji. Varna Shankara means unwanted the peace of the general society. So that is why to check this social disturbance, we have prescribed rules and regulations mentioned in the Vedas, by which the population will automatically become peaceful. And they become very organized for life. Is recommended. And Krishna says whenever there is general disregard for these principles, regulative principles, he himself descends and he'll correct the society. So we can follow in his footsteps. But some people just say, oh no, they just take his Rasa Lila for instance. Say, no, look at me. I'm also as great as Krishna. I'm just copying him. And I cannot do that. And some people follow, they say, I'm the greatest devotee of Shiva. And they live in a certain way. Their behavior will be very different, like they smoke ganja and they take intoxicants, drugs, and they try to imitate like how Shiva lives. You cannot imitate, you cannot copy. That's not possible. He drank poison. Can a normal person drink poison? No. And like here, you see, Krishna lifted the Govardhana hill on his little finger. Is it possible for any of us to do? Then no. Then so we cannot compare ourselves with them. We cannot compare ourselves to Lord Shiva or Lord Krishna. What we can do is just follow their instructions and make our life perfect. So let's go on to 3.25. Preeti Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please recite, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Sakta karmani avidvamso yata kurvanti bharata kuryat vidvams tata saktas chikirshur loka sangraham. Hare Krishna. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path. Bhagavad Gita 3.25. Hare Krishna.
So what is the difference between a Krishna conscious person and a person who is not Krishna conscious? What is the basic difference? What do you think is the difference?
Attachment towards material things will be more if we are not Krishna conscious.
When we are Krishna conscious, then we don't have any attachment from material. We don't have any material desire. And the person who is not a non-devotee, they are having the material desire more. Like the attachment is more to material world.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Yes, the difference is their desires, material desires. A Krishna conscious person will not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. He does nothing for his sense gratification. So that is why he needs to teach people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is the best example we have, how he actually worked, In just 10 years, he built so many temples and he tried to spread this Krishna consciousness so much. He's trying to teach people, by reading all his books and all, whatever, all his purpose, we understand so much. We understand how to live, how to conduct ourselves. So it actually helps us a lot. How learned and ignorant people act. Difference in desires. Self-realized person. Satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Work without attachments to fruits. Results of work. Why? To set an example and lead people on right path. What does an ignorant person do? Satisfaction of one's own senses. Work with attachments to fruits. Results of work. Okay, 3.26. Who will recite this one? Anyone who has not recited so far? Okay, we'll just go on. Saheli Mataji, will you be able to recite? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, yes. Bhagavad Gita 3.26. Na buddhi vedam janna yed ajnanam karma sangidam josha yat sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fructive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. Bhagavad Gita 3.26. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. That J is actually, it is like Agnanam Mataji, not Ajnanam, because when you see J, it may be confusing.
Ajnanam.
Jnana Agnanam. So people in general, all the conditioned souls, they do not know anything beyond sense gratification. They may study Vedas also. Sometimes if you speak to them, they say, I know this, I know that, I know everything only. But actually they don't know anything beyond sense gratification. Whatever they do, they'll be satisfying their own desires. So a realized soul in Krishna consciousness should not disturb such a person, but they can slowly engage them in activities of Krishna consciousness. Like Mataji gave this example in her 18 days course also. If you have, attended those, like for this person here, he grows a lot of coconuts, right? He sells them, makes money. But a person who is Krishna conscious can tell him, anyway you're going to sell, anyway you're going to consume, why don't you offer it to the Lord first? So he may do it. So that way, engage them somehow indirectly or directly. You can engage them in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That way they are getting the benefit. So we can do that. Others, we cannot disturb them because they are too much into their own beliefs and thoughts. But devotees are very merciful. They do approach them. So 3.27. Manohar Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Do you like to recite?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Bhagavad Gita 3.27. Prakritriha kriyamanani gunay karmani sarvasyaha ahankara vimuddatma kartaham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of the activities that are inactually carried out by the three modes of material nature. Bhagavad Gita 3.27. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So what do you understand by the word Vimudhatma? What do you think that means? Ahankara Vimudhatma. You can unmute and give the answers. Okay, what do you think it means?
A person who has false ego.
He is bewildered by false ego and makes him forget his eternal relationship with Krishna. Right? So people in material consciousness are very much attached to the idea that they are the body. So they will not do anything for Krishna. They'll be working like that. And he'll be convinced by false ego that he is the doer. It's like I'm doing everything. If I have achieved something, it's because of myself. I am the doer. That is their mentality. So that is a symptom of nescience actually. So we must remember, I must remember always that I am not the doer. The action is carried out by the three modes of material nature, sattva, rajas, and tamoguna. We are acting in a particular way. Why? Because we are infected by this guna, whatever it is, whichever guna it is, mode of goodness or passion or ignorance, we are infected by that. Guna also means rope. See the rope here? As if we are tied, bound by it, no? That's how we behave. Okay, 3.53. Sorry. 0.28. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Decide this one. Let me. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Go ahead.
Bhagavad Gita 3.28. Tattva vittu mahabaho guna karma vibhagyaho guna gunesha vartanta iti matva na sajjate. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive results. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So a person who actually knows the absolute truth in these three different features, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, he's called Tattvavid, because he knows his own factual position in relationship with the Supreme Lord. And he won't be disturbed. Whatever happens, whatever reactions he is facing, good or bad, he will not be disturbed at all. And he thinks whatever it is, whatever is happening is because of the Lord. Everything is because of the mercy of Krishna. And he dovetails all his activities in devotional service to the Lord. So let's 3.29. Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Mataji. Prakrite guna samudha sajjante guna karmanshu tan akrishna vido mandan krishna vinna vicharyayet. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached, but the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. You see, there is one word called Manda here. Manda. You say some person is very Manda. No, actually it is a word used in some languages. What does that mean? In what context this has been said here? What do you understand with this word Manda?
Who is not intelligent?
Yeah,
Or
why
lazy person?
is ignorant,
Dull and
right?
ignorant.
Ignorant. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Why is he dull and ignorant? Because he thinks he is the body and he's attached too much to the bodily consciousness. Like that's why he's Manda. And he's actually such people, what happens is sometimes they may engage in social work and nationalism, altruism, all this under the spell of their own designations. They'll be attached to their designations also. And all this is actually material activity. Whatever they do, all these are material activities. For them, spiritual realization is like a myth. They cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is advising us not to disturb such people and waste our time. But again, devotees are very kind. They take risks. They approach such people also, all these ignorant people, and they try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness. Because it's very, very important to do that, which is because we know human life is very precious. So 3.30, who would like to recite this one? There is somebody else. Puja Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mai sarvani karmani sannyasyadatmacetasa nirashir nirmano bhutva yuddhasva vijjata jvaraha. No claims to proprietorship and free from lethargy, fight. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship and free from lethargy, fight. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So actually, this sloka actually clearly indicates the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna instructs here, he's saying, become Krishna conscious to discharge your duties as if in a military discipline. Arjuna should just follow the orders of Krishna and fight as if Krishna is his military commander. Just because Krishna wants him to fight, he has to fight. That is what he's trying to get at. And here there is one word called Adhyatma Chetasa. What do you understand by that? Adhyatma Chetasa. Who is Adhyatma Chetas?
Krishna.
The one who depends completely on the Supreme.
Self-knowledge, Mataji. Adya Atma.
Yes, one who is completely dependent on Krishna, in Krishna consciousness, such a person is called Adhyatma Chetas. Because, without any personal consideration, he'll just do, just like there are many examples like Hanuman also. So that is Adhyatma Chetas, where the person is just like Arjuna also. In the end, you will know after 18 chapters, after reading all the chapters, you'll understand he wants to fight only because Krishna wants him to fight. That's how it is. Totally dependent on Krishna, and he just follows his instructions. So that is Adhyatma Chetas. And then Nirashi means what? Nirashi.
Without desire.
Yes. Without expecting any fruitive results. Like there is one example of a cashier. He may count so many dollars or rupees in a bank, right? As an employee, he'll be counting money. But at the end of the day, he has to just give all that to the bank and just walk away. He'll go home. He will not take all this with him, right? That's how he does. He cannot claim all that as his. Nirashi, it's like that. So whatever is in this world is not ours. We'll be giving up this body also. So nothing belongs to us. And there is this word nirmama. What does nirmama mean?
Ownership, they will not look for that, Mataji.
Yes.
Mama is, that is mine, like that. Nirmama means not mine. So they will not take the ownership.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you so much. So nothing is mine. Nirmama means nothing is mine. Not claiming proprietorship over anything. So if we execute such an order, we become Vigata Jvaraha. Jvara also means fever. So Vigata Jvara means we become free from that lethargy, feverish mentality. That's what it means. Let's go ahead. Okay. Text 30. Purpose of Bhagavad Gita. Surrendering all your work unto me, full knowledge of me, not blindly. This is not just because he's saying no, with knowledge, with intelligence, without desires for profit, with no claim of proprietorship, free from lethargy, fight. 3.31. Who would like to recite? Same hands are up. Manohar Panjabi Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Bhagavad Gita 3.31. Ye me matan idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasayanto motyante te pi karmabhe. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from bondage of fruitive action. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So the command or order of Krishna is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, all Vedic wisdom. Vedas are eternal, as we know. So this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. So we should have faith, firm faith in Krishna's words without having any envy towards him. That is very important. So 3.32. Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna. Next verse, Sahili Mataji can recite.
Etva itad abhyasuyanto nanu tishtanti me matam sarvajnana vimudamastan vidhi nashtan achetasa. But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, be fooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So if someone disobeys the order of the say executive head of the state, so see the government has so many rules, right? They have made so many rules. If you don't follow, what will happen? You know, a person who does not follow will be punished. Just like that, disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will also lead to punishment. So next verse. So Sahili Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Bhagavad Gita 3.33. Sadarsam chestate savasya prakritir janavan api prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. For everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish?
Hare
Hare Krishna.
What should we do? We should not suddenly give up our prescribed duties. It is better to be situated in one's position and try to attain Krishna consciousness under the spiritual master with some training, right? We need superior training under the superior training. So that will help us come out from this clutches of Maya. So how do we become free from the influence of the modes of material nature? Through Krishna consciousness. Unless we are situated in Krishna consciousness on the transcendental platform, we cannot become free. So this is very important. See, all our academic education will not help us to come out of this, entanglement of Maya. Just by theory also we cannot come out. Okay, I read all these books, so I know. That's not going to help us. So unless and until a person really realizes and lives accordingly, I'm not the soul. Sorry, the person who thinks I am not the soul, I am the body, will again get another body. So we have to come to the realization that we are spirit souls and what is our constitutional position, everything, and we start behaving accordingly. Then there is some progress. So we are in this bondage because we have been associated with material nature for a very, very long time. Like in one of the classes we were discussing, right? It is Kali Yuga. That means we were there in Satya Yuga also, Treta Yuga also, Dwapara Yuga also, and this is Kali Yuga and we're still here. So how many births we must have taken? So it is high time we understand that we have to do something about this. So the next verse, Kavita Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Bhagavad Gita, verse 3.34. Yendriyasyarthe ragadesho yavasthito taryo na vashamagacheto hasya paripanthino. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Because of this material association, in spite of all this regulated sense enjoyment, there will be a chance to fall down again. It can happen because, in purport also Prabhupada says, there can be danger even on the safest roads. It can happen, accidents can happen, right? So this is an example of Bharat Maharaj. We know he renounced his kingdom, he renounced his family, he went to the forest, he was performing all the austerities. Why he renounced all that? So that he can come out of attachment, no attachment for material, material things, nothing. But he went to the forest, there he became attached to a deer. See, there was some, we cannot say he fell down because he was already at a bhava stage, very, very elevated devotee. In the next birth also, he remembered what happened to him. Why he was born as a deer, he remembered that. So he's a very highly elevated devotee. But a person, the point is, person who is in Krishna consciousness, a devotee in that state, will naturally be averse to all material sense gratification or this kind of attachment, because he is performing for the Lord and he is actually safe that way. He does everything for the Lord, nothing for himself. So chances of falling down are, it's not easy to fall down, but it can happen. Maya can bewilder, but you have to be very careful. 3.35. Who will decide this? Deepa Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swa anushtitat swadharme nidhanam shreya paradharmo bhayavaha. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction is the cause of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties. For to follow another's path is dangerous. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Whether material duties or spiritual duties, whatever duties we have, we should stick to those duties rather than imitate another person's prescribed duties. Materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to our own psycho-physical condition. That is under the spell of the modes of material nature. Like for instance, Brahmana. Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, he is non-violent, And Kshatriya is in the mode of passion. His job is such that he's a violent person. So that's his work, right? He has to use violence. And like that, according to their own nature. What are spiritual duties? They are ordered by the spiritual master for the transcendental loving service of Krishna. But if a person transcends these three modes of material nature and is fully Krishna conscious, for such a person, he does not have to follow these prescribed duties. He can, if he's a Brahmana also, he can behave like a Kshatriya. They can follow any activity. Like you see this example here. Here you see Vishwamitra. Originally he was a Kshatriya, but later he became a Brahmana. He acted as a Brahmana. And then Parashuram was a Brahmana, but later on he acted as a Kshatriya. Because they were transcendentally situated. They could do so. So on the material platform, we must perform our duties according to the modes of material nature and have full sense of Krishna consciousness. So when we transcend, it is different. That is what Krishna is telling. That's why he is telling Arjuna, transcend these three modes. That means just if you transcend these modes, you are not actually working as this or that. You are actually performing activities for me, for Krishna. That is completely devotional. So section 5, conquering the ultimate enemy, lust. Next, Arjuna asks an important question. After hearing text 3.34, one may determinedly think, yes, from today onward, I will steadily do my duty and control my attachments and aversions. I will act only according to Shastra. Experienced teachers state that, however, such immediate inspirations may prove difficult to adhere over time. Arjuna, being aware of reality, asks the following question. It is not so easy to say, okay, from today onward, I'll be 100% perfect. Because Arjuna, I'll ask this question. We'll understand why. Priti Mataji, Hare Krishna, please recite this verse, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Arjuna uvacha atah kena prayukto ayam papam charati purushaha anichan api varshneya balad iva niyojitaha. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Bhagavad Gita 3.36.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So false ego is bewildering. It bewilders the spirit soul, making him believe that he is the doer. So Arjuna asks now, how did we get into this false ego, cycle, false identity cycle? How did you even become like this? Because originally, by nature, we are all spiritual, we are pure, we are free from all these material contaminations. We are part and parcels of the Supreme Lord. But when in contact with material nature, a person acts in sinful ways, right? Sometimes, even if he does not want to commit a sin, he'll commit. Like we can see that he knows what is wrong, but still he will do something wrong. Like you can see, a person may know that he should not jump the red light. It's because that he will jump the red light because for some reason he'll jump like that. In spite of knowing this is wrong, this is sin, still they are committing. Some people are committing sin as if they are forced to do that. Why they don't have control? Why is this? So that's what he's asking. So Krishna does not induce a living entity to commit sin. He is not making us commit sins. It is us. What is it that is making us commit sins? It is lust. So Krishna will say it is lust that is making us commit sins. So one more verse, the next one. Let's see who's going to recite this one. Kavita Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, verse 3.37. Shri Bhagwan Uvacha Kama Esa Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhava Mahasano Mahapapma Vidviyena Miha Vedinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemies of this world.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Okay, so when a living entity comes in contact with material creation, what happens is eternal love for Krishna. We all in the spiritual world, everybody is in love with Krishna eternally. We all have that love within us. But just it's dormant right now. So that eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in the association with the mode of passion. And we have this partial independence, right? We misuse that. Our service attitude it gets transformed into the tendency for sense enjoyment. That is lusty behavior. Just like how milk becomes curds. If it comes in touch with tamarind or something sour, what happens? That will become curds, right? Just like that. And what happens when the lust is unsatisfied? It turns into wrath. It says that, right? And wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion will make us, continue with this material existence. So actually, lust is the greatest enemy for the living entity, and it is lust only which will induce a pure living entity to remain entangled in this material world. So what we can do? We know this wrath is manifestation of mode of ignorance. So instead of say our mode of passion, instead of letting it degrade to mode of ignorance, we can elevate ourselves to the mode of goodness. We can do that by spiritual attachment, by devotional service, by staying in the association of devotees. We can stay in mode of goodness. There are so many rules, prescribed methods are there. We can follow all that. Then we can stay in the mode of goodness. So then actually by doing that, we can chant more, we can progress. Otherwise, lust, as we know, is the greatest enemy. And devotees like, Hanuman, for instance, he used wrath to burn Lanka. He used his anger to burn Lanka. That was an activity done for Lord Ram. So that is not considered sinful activity. Like that. Here, Arjuna also is engaging his, wrath upon his enemies. And he is again working for the satisfaction of the Lord only. So there is no reaction. That is not a sinful activity. So we can use that as a service to the Lord. So we can convert this lust into love for Godhead. So we can do that by practice. Staying in the mode of goodness. 3.38. Saheli Mataji. Please recite, Mataji. Mataji, you can unmute.
Hare Krishna Mataji, may I?
Yes, Mataji.
Bhagavad Gita 3.38. Dhumena vriyate vanir yatha darso malena cha yathol bena varto garvas tatha te nedam avartam. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this last.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 verse 30. Hare Krishna Mataji.
So there are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. Okay, the consciousness is obscured. So this covering is lust under different manifestations. So there are 3 things mentioned here, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and womb around the embryo. So when lust is compared to smoke, the fire, the fire of the living spark, that is in Krishna consciousness, can, the fire can be perceived a little. And by this stage is like beginning of Krishna consciousness. And the smoke covered fire is compared to the human being. The dust on the mirror refers to the cleansing process of the mirror of the mind. So, it requires some cleaning. So this is compared to the birds and bees, their life, like animals and birds, their consciousness is little more obscured. And then the embryo, child covered by the womb, this is an analogy for a very helpless situation, like trees. We at least can do many things, but trees, they are almost devoid of all consciousness. They are in such a condition because of their own great exhibition of lust. That is why they are like that. So in human form, we are very, very fortunate because we can cultivate Krishna consciousness and rekindle our love for God. And if we handle the smoke carefully, the fire can blaze. So how do we do that? By chanting the holy name and by working under the guidance of the spiritual master. We can do that. Okay. First, Hare Krishna. You can recite, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Avritam jnanam itena jnanino nitya vairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurina nalena cha. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So Prabhupada gives a lot of references also. He says in Manu Smriti this is mentioned, and this Purana states this, like that. He gives references. So he says, like a living entity, us, for instance, we cannot satisfy lust by sense enjoyment. It is like pouring fuel on fire. If you supply fuel, what will happen? It will blaze even more. So the more we think, okay, I'll need 2 more, I'll be fine. I'll do this more and more I'll do. Any addiction is like that. The more I do, the more it gets worse. It does not get better. So it is like supplying fuel to fire. So that's how sense enjoyment is. The more sense enjoyment, the worse it is. So our material civilization is like this, advancement of our civilization. It is based on sense gratification. That means we are actually committing more and more. We perform all these kind of activities where the duration of the material existence is prolonged. We are increasing our own miseries by too much sense gratification. So when we are enjoying due to sense gratification, we feel happy, right? But that actually we feel happy. It is like, it is actually dragging us down. So that is actually, that feeling of happiness is like an enemy for us. So we have to be careful. Okay. Next verse. Let's see. Manor Punjabi Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Then next we can give a chance to Kavita Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Bhagavad Gita 3.40. Indriyani mano buddhir asya dhishthanam uchyate itir vimohete isya jnanam avritya dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So here we have an example, an analogy is there. Chariot of the body. Let's see what they all represent. Horses represent the senses, and then these senses are going haywire. Eyes want to see something beautiful, nose wants to smell something nice, tongue wants to eat all kind of delicacies. They are going, everywhere. Then there is a passenger. Passenger represents the soul, self. And intelligence is the driver, and mind is the driving instrument. Soul is just observing. They're all not acting at the soul level. It's like it is wondering, like, what did the intelligence and mind do to me? So the soul is the enjoyer or sufferer in the association of the mind and senses. Prabhupada in one of his lectures says, very nice thing is this. Very easy to understand if you hear that. He says, for instance, you want to go somewhere. You have a vehicle, you call the driver. You tell the driver, take me to this place. Say you want to go to the temple. You tell the driver, take me to the temple. So you sit inside the vehicle. The driver actually is not listening to you. He is taking you all over the town. Taking you to the sweet shop also, to the hotel also, to somewhere, something and all. Not at all listening. So if that happens, we are gone, right? He has control of the vehicle, driving you everywhere. He is not listening. You want to go to the temple, but he's not taking you. That is how it is. Our mind becomes very restless, not listening. So Arjuna himself is saying, mind is so restless and turbulent, obstinate. It is so strong. It is not difficult to subdue the mind. It is more difficult than controlling the wind. So this mind can overcome the intelligence also. Actually, intelligence should guide the mind, but it is the other way sometimes. So the mind is supposed to be subservient to intelligence, but sometimes it doesn't work. It is like sometimes the infection is so bad that medicine is not working. It's like that. So we can control the strong mind by the practice of yoga. So practice yoga in the sense again, back to chanting. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says the easiest way to control our mind is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we must engage our mind fully in Krishna's service. Then there will be no other engagement for the mind. We'll understand this better now. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, 3.41. Kavita Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. 3.41 verse. Tasmad indriyana adu niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahi yonam jnana vijnana nashanam. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realizations. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So from a very early stages of life, we must begin regulating our senses in Krishna consciousness, practice the devotional service of the Lord, and turn our lust into love of Godhead. That is the highest perfectional stage of human life. So very beginning, like Krishna also says, stop at the stage of contemplation. Like, the story of Ajamila, right? He thought, okay, let me see. He was in the forest. He heard some sound. He thought, let me see what will happen. I'll just see it once. Nothing will happen. I can hear it. So let me see also. But what happened? There was fall down, right? He got the prostitute home. His entire life came, it was upside down. His wife left him. His parents left him. He started committing so many sins. So it's like that. Right at the stage of contemplation, we have to stop. Krishna says, curb it at the stage of contemplation only. Okay. How do these people do? How do the devotees in Krishna consciousness curb this? How? Because, by following all these processes, they're actually developing a higher taste. They don't even have taste for all these lower things. They have higher taste. That's how they can control their mind and senses. Okay, now degrees of covering of the lust on the living entities. Lust, different degrees of covering of lust. Beginning of Krishna consciousness, smoke and fire. This was the example. So this is this one, and then cleansing by spiritual methods. Dust and mirror. Knowledge completely covered. Embryo in the womb. Okay. More characteristics of lust. Cover living entities pure consciousness. Lust is a symbol of ignorance. Lust is never satisfied. Satisfying lust is like adding fuel to fire. How to stop it? Stop feeding it and let it die. Okay. So we all think like this, right? I'm going to enjoy my life. And people think, okay, I can enjoy my life without God, without Krishna. So only when there is some trouble, some kind of problem they face, that when they really think about God. Otherwise, not. Otherwise, right? They won't have time for Hare Krishna. Is Prabhuji said something? Okay. So we must curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, because lust can destroy the urge for self-realization. That's why it's very important. Go on. Text 40. How to conquer the enemy lust? Sitting places of the lust. Senses, mind, intelligence, and soul. center of all activities of the senses, reservoir of ideas for sense gratification, lusty intelligence is captured, capital of that, then influences the soul to acquire a false ego. So let's understand this now. See what happens in the conditioned soul. The enemy has taken different strategic positions. So Krishna is telling us where to find the enemy, the sitting places of lust. So mind is the center of all the activities of the senses. He's saying that. And it is a storehouse of all the ideas of sense gratification. So the mind and the senses become the storehouses of lust. And once this happens, the mind is storehouse of lust, the intelligence also becomes lusty. And intelligence is like the immediate neighbor, next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Now, the spirit soul will acquire a false ego. When that happens, the soul starts identifying itself with matter. This false ego is very, very, again, it's a problem. So the spirit soul will become addicted to enjoying the material senses, and it will look for happiness in the wrong places. That's what will happen. So we have to be very careful of this lust. And by looking for happiness in the material senses and in these material activities, what is happening? The soul will start thinking, oh, this is true happiness. If I do this, I'll be happy. If I do that, I'll be happy. So eternal happiness is with Krishna only. But this lust is, taking us somewhere else. Lust, regulate the senses. How to overcome lust? Learn Krishna consciousness from Bhagavad Gita. Even a late beginner can become lover of God by following regulative principles of devotional service. Okay. We almost are at the end of the chapter and few more important slides. So, who will recite this? Puja Mataji, Hare Krishna. Please recite this verse, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Bhagavad Gita 3.42. Indriyani pranyahur indriyabhyaparam mana manasastu parabuddhir yo buddheha parastastu saha. Mind is between senses and intelligence. Soul is even higher than the intelligence. Intelligence is higher than the mind. Mind is higher than the senses. Senses are superior to dull matter.
You can read it from like this, like
downwards, I think. Yes, sorry, Mother.
Hierarchy. The soul is the master of intelligence, mind, and senses. And in Krishna consciousness, what happens? The soul makes direct connection with Krishna, direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme Lord, all the other subordinates like intelligence, mind, senses, they will also automatically become engaged in Krishna consciousness. So what is the solution? We must understand the constitutional position of the soul with intelligence. By intelligence, we must engage our mind and senses in the service of the Lord, completely surrender unto Him. Then automatically the mind will become stronger. The senses will not become engaged in the lower propensities. Will not even look for there's no fall down there. So it will become like serpents broken. It's like a snake charmer. Sometimes how they control the snake, like that. The mind can control the senses. So this will all happen in the association of devotees only. So the association of pure devotees, very, very important. This will avoid us from falling down due to the agitated mind. And then soul can directly engage in the service of the Lord. Okay. We have gone through this before, I think, or this is the first time. I think this is the first time, right? This information will be repeated in another chapter also. So 5 stages of realization. So what is the first stage? Do you know what it means, and can you explain, anyone? 2 people have raised their hand.
Yes.
Yes, Mataji, what do you
Gita
Annamaya?
These are three modes we are having, like the Tamogun, Rajogun, and Satyagun.
In Annamaya platform, what do you understand? What is Annamaya stage? Annamaya stage
Eating food,
platform.
Mataji, food related annam. Mataji.
Annamaya platform is the lowest consciousness. It's the
Yes,
body
Tamogun.
platform. Yes. Okay. And this person in this consciousness, he's convinced that he is the body and he can only think about food, like little children, like small babies, all they worry about is their food, nothing else, right? They can't think beyond that. That's like that. Prabhuji used this very nice example. Like a person in this platform, even in the middle of the day, if he feels like drinking, you will drink. You'll go to the liquor shop and drink. Is in that consciousness. Next is Pranamaya, sensual platform. Here, there is a sense of awareness that I'm alive, and he'll do some work, and he can regulate his senses. He will enjoy his senses, but he will regulate. If in case he wants to have some liquor or something, but he can regulate. He said, okay, no, not today, and not in the afternoon. Maybe this is not an appropriate time. So he can understand that much. They understand the living symptoms, and these two stages, Annamaya stage and Pranamaya stage, we can see in animals also. Even animals can achieve these two stages. Then next is Manomaya, mental platform. This stage, a person may cultivate some knowledge. He'll become speculative. He's like, I'm not the body, I'm not the senses, oh, I'm the mind. They become a little more inquisitive, curious, they start thinking, and they get attached to like classical music, philosophical texts and all that. And they'll be satisfying their mind more than anything. They engage in activities that soothe their mind. Like they may read a good book, they hear nice music. Like next stage is intellectual platform, which is higher than the mental platform. Like Gnanis, they understand. A Gnani will think, oh, I'm not the body. No, I'm not the mind. Am I the senses? I'm not this also. So they're interested in knowing something beyond their mind also. They gather knowledge, they start seeking spiritual identity. So they are a little more advanced. Like Sat Chit Ananda, right? Sat means eternal, Chit is full of knowledge, Ananda means full of bliss. So in Vijnanamaya Kosha, one is realizing the Sat and Chit potency, that I'm not the body, I'm the soul, but there is no bliss there. Okay, that is that platform. And in the next stage, Anandamaya platform, that is the supreme stage. In this, what is happening? There is a realization of all blissful nature. He's convinced, that person would be convinced and he'll be firmly established that he is the spirit soul. He knows that I am the spirit soul and completely situated in the spiritual identity. He's fully aware, he's part and parcel of Krishna, and he engages in devotional service, and he's always happy. Nothing can disturb him. And we have Prabhupada as an example, and there are so many acharyas you can take as an example. They're always happy, they're always in bliss. So let us go to the next slide. Text 42. The solution is hierarchy of sitting places of lust, soul, intelligence, mind, senses, different outlets for activities of lust. The senses are different outlets for activities of lust. There is dull matter here, see. Even though the soul is the master of intelligence, mind and senses, unless it is strengthened by Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind. Okay. We almost reached the end of the chapter. So who would like to recite this one? Jayant Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Please.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Evam Bhagavad Gita 3.43. Evam buddhe param buddhva samstapyatmanam atmana jahi satrum mahabaho kama rupam durasadam. thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence. O mighty armed Arjuna, one should not study the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, that is Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Hare
So
Krishna.
conditioned souls have this desire for overloading, sense gratification, I want this, I want that. We have that tendency. So we want to dominate the resources provided to us by the material nature. But by gradually developing in Krishna consciousness, we can control the material senses, we can control the mind and the intelligence. So that is the summary of this chapter. And he's talking about deliberate spiritual intelligence. So the next chapter is about Jnana Yoga. So summary now. Summary of chapter 3. Dealing with the confusion, renunciation or working in Nishkama Karma. Arjuna's confusion we discussed. And then from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga. And then, Nishkama Karma, acting dutifully with detachment to set the correct example. Beware of lust and anger. So Krishna introduced the concept of working as a sacrifice for Vishnu according to prescribed duties, Kama Karma Yoga. And there are people attached to their own work and the results of the work, this Karma Kanda stage. So intelligent people can engage them to perform some work for Krishna. That was also mentioned. Then what is one impelled to commit sinful activities? Why does one commit sinful activities? Because of lust. And we also saw a living entity gets bewildered by false ego. And then we learned about lust also, how lust covers the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. And then Prahalad Maharaj actually says in Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, we don't have any other enemy other than our own mind. He tells that is to his father. Because his father is always a demon, right? So he keeps telling him like that. So our mind can become our enemy. Very, very important to control our mind and senses. And then Krishna prescribes action based on Nishkama Karma Yoga, and rather than premature renunciation based on Jnana Yoga. And then, so in the next chapter, we're going to, he says, how lust is a formidable enemy on the path of yoga, and one has to conquer lust with deliberate spiritual intelligence. So Krishna is going to give us a lot of information in the next chapter, Jnana Yoga. We'll understand who is Krishna and what he's trying to tell. Okay, let us do that next week. I'll stop the live stream.